Hey guys, Mecha Knight here. We're back with part 2 of with Ben 10 Aliens and Alternate Ultimates. If you didn't see the last video, here's the gist of it. Go see that video though, it's pretty good if I do say so myself. Evolution doesn't create a final product. Evolution splits off animals into multiple different species. And so I thought, if Ben 10 Aliens were surviving in such a hostile environment, surely there wouldn't just be one final product. So I've made alternate ultimates for all of the ultimates, and from that explanation, I hope you've gathered that I'm not trying to replace the ultimates that already exist. Some of them are some of my favourite designs in the series. It's just a fun concept. Anyway, first up, we've got Ultimate Arctiguana Bee. Now, Arctiguana is personally one of my favourite Ben 10 aliens, but with this design I really wanted to go back to the design from the classic series. I just think it was a lot more alien than the one in Omniverse, and I just like it better. Now, Arctiguana, as you can probably guess from the name, is a very reptilian alien. You know, he is an iguana. So, what I've done is I've taken him in a more amphibian direction. That was mostly inspired by the fact that Arctiguana, he does have gills, and so I feel like the cross between a fish and a reptile is kind of an amphibian. So that's what I wanted to go with. I gave him much more frog-like attributes, and I don't know why I was inspired by this, but I just made him massive. He's like kaiju-sized, as tall as a skyscraper. My idea was, obviously Godzilla is the most famous kaiju, and he is a reptile. And it's inspired by some of them old-fashioned kaiju designs, where you can barely even tell what on earth they're based on, because they're just so weird, and they have whatever powers they need for the situation. So I was kind of inspired by that. So obviously he's kaiju-sized. I gave him them tentacles just to up the weirdness factor, because if you look at old-fashioned kaiju, like Ghidorah, Godzilla, like a bunch of them, when you really think about it, they're kind of weird. And stuff like Anguirus. Anguirus, I'm pretty sure, has wings. And they didn't design Anguirus to have wings. They designed Anguirus as he is, and then gave him wings because, well, that's what fit the situation. So that's what I kind of wanted to do with this alien. Give him some random abilities, just make him really weird, but also, I did want him to still make sense. So obviously he's still got his ice powers. What I wanted to do, I kind of made him more humanoid, but I feel like that's just because the majority of kaiju are bipedal, as in they stand on two legs. I obviously kept his ice powers since it's Arctiguana, but he uses his ability to, like, stick to walls, which, to be fair, there's not really any walls to stick to when you're skyscraper size. As you probably saw early on, I started off with a way smaller head, but then I expanded his, like, frog throat patch, just because I feel like the head is a space you really want to be drawn to. I gave him some spikes, obviously, rule of cool with kaiju. They've got to have spikes. And I really wanted to give him the feet of, like, the hands of the original Arctiguana design. Like, if you look at them, they're really weird and unique, and they kind of just revert to regular claws in Omniverse, so I wanted to do something a bit cooler. He's still got his ice blasts from his mouth, like his ice breath, but if you see on his shoulders, then sort of like cracks, them holes, he extends like spikes from them. Something that seems like a pretty useless ability, but it's something that would work in the moment, so I really did that to fit with the kaiju theme. And something that I wanted to just be a weird ability, again fitting into the theme, but also makes sense. He can turn the icy breaths invisible. I don't know, come up with some sci-fi jargon about him reflecting the light through it and whatever. He's really slimy, and I thought that would be a cool idea. I just really wanted to weirden him up with this, since Ultimates tend to get pretty random features. Like, why does a giant size-changing dinosaur get Gatling gun hands? Don't ask me. His downside is he loses his hands. Next up, we're moving on to my ultimate version of Raph. Now, the original Ultimate Raph, he's fine. Like, I don't dislike any of the Ultimates, except for some others, but we'll get to them at the end of this video after this one. Now, Ultimate Raph, he's fine. He just kind of feels like he's just Raph to me. You know, we don't really gain anything. Like, I think he looks really cool, but I think the main part of an Ultimate is, I feel like it should be gaining something, not changing in appearance. So with this one, I wanted to make him a bit more lean, like one of them fighters where they're not huge brawlers, they're like a bit more of a rogue, you would say. Like, a bit sneakier, like leaner and faster. I gave him 4 arms just to like add on to them fighting capabilities, and I made his spikes able to like move around like tentacles. Again, random ability, but I think Ultimates should have them. Now, I wanted to give him a more defensive ability, since Raph is a very offensive alien. Like, very strong, that's his whole idea. So I wanted to give him somewhat of a defensive capability. Something that would help him survive in the Ultimate Alien, like, generator. But not something where he would fight back, per se. And so, I gave him the ability to absorb anger. He takes it just out of your mind, like, I don't know, all them chemicals that make you angry. He just absorbs them into himself. And he's able to turn that into his new ability, which is firepower. It's blue fire, I just thought that was a cool visual. Now, I also, with this direction, I felt like I kind of had to, like, go in another direction with his design also. Because like, I really like that set of abilities, and I could really, like, well show it visually. But I think it would just be a bit boring. So what I did is, Raph is obviously a tiger. If you didn't know that, well, have you even watched Ben 10? So, Raph is a tiger. And I wanted this one to be based on, like, a snow tiger. Or, like, you know, one of them white tigers. So, obviously, he's white. Now, like, snow tigers, white tigers, and that. The idea is he's a bit more icy, so that's why I made the fire blue. You can see on one of his arms, he's, like, using, like, his veins are glowing blue as he's pushing the fire through them. I just thought that was a cool visual, and especially with, like, veins being associated with anger and stuff. I think it really fits Raph. This is one of them where I can, just a few more passes and I could just see it in the regular series. Like, it just makes sense. He's more nimble than the other one, like, faster, more manoeuvrable, and I just like his firepower. Like, it's something you wouldn't expect from Raph, but at the same time, if I told you Ultimate Raph had fire powers, like, as far as Ultimates go, that's probably a pretty tame one. Like, so absorbing anger into fire, I think that was just a nice way to, like, bring it into the design instead of just doing the basic, oh, he gets so angry he, like, lights on fire or something. Like, fire is usually associated with anger, so I wanted to put that connection there. Now, with this design, I did, like, show a bit too much detail. Like, with these designs, I'm not really going for the Ben 10 art style, per se. Just, like, how generally they would look. And with this series, I said it in the last episode, but I'll say it again. I think it's one of my best for being able to frame my characters, really draw your attention to their head. Because, like, I can't really do that in my others. I do it with, like, the sun and the moon. It's really easy. And even with probably my 4-way ultimate fusion in my last Ben 10 episode of, like, 4-way Ben 10 fusions, I was able to frame that with, like, a building. And I've been definitely working on it, framing the character, have clear, like, sight lines and of where you should look. But I'm still improving on it, and I'm definitely not there yet. But this series has definitely been helping me to get there. Anyway, on to the next ultimate, Big Chill, one of my least favourite ultimates in the series. But I think this ultimate turned out pretty well. So, let's have a look at how it turned out. On to Big Chill. Now, Big Chill's ultimates, it's one of my least favourite in the series. Not because I don't like the concept. I think the concept of swapping the ice to fire, but kind of mixing it in with like ice having a burning sensation with like frostbite. I think that's a cool concept, but the actual design just being a reskin, there's a lot of missed potential there. However, this is alternate Ultimates, not redesigning Ultimates, so I didn't go in the same direction. This one, I feel like the other Ultimate leaned a lot more into the ice elements of Big Chill. Well, kind of doing the opposite of the ice elements, but like, it's basically like just, it focuses on the ice elements. It doesn't really improve the ghost elements at all. It focuses on the chill and not the big, if you get my gist. So, this one I wanted to make him a lot more ghost-like in his design and appearance. I gave him kind of like a very colourful palette, you know, a bit psychedelic with like the oranges, the purples. Now, I did kind of get rid of his like full cloak for a bit of a cape hood thing, scarf. I think that kind of works with the design, it's just a bit random for me. So yeah, definitely gave him some bright colours. I really wanted him to just scream ghost. And that definitely leans in with his abilities. Obviously, his downside is that he can't fly anymore. But he can now throw out, like, spirits. And when they attach to people, they give those people the ability to density shift and turn intangible like Big Chill already could. I just think that's a really cool idea. And maybe he could control people with it. I'm a bit torn on whether it should just be a power-up or whether it's like a thing to control people. Power-up, I think, balances out his abilities a bit more, but controlling people probably makes more sense for him to have evolved in the Ultimate Alien Generator thing, whatever. So, I'm a bit torn. Tell me which you think it should be in the comments. We can have a conversation down there. However, what I did with his design, obviously he can density shift, turn intangible. I did get rid of his ice powers though, so he's more of a big ghost now, not a Big Chill. I made his face really dark, but I did cover it in the psychedelic powers to kind of make it look like you're looking into a void or something. I made his eyes green, obviously, but they're like really glowing green. Like, they really stand out among the blackness of his, like, face. Anyway, that's this design. I'm pretty happy with it. I think the pose I could have done better. And I probably could have framed him a bit better as well. Kind of framing his hand. Which, like, I think I've got a nice point of focus for it. But if I was doing this again, I'd try and frame him a bit better. Anyway, on to the next one. Ultimate Cannonbolt. One of the biggest letdowns in the series. I think for each of these episodes, I'm going to try and cover 2 popular Ultimates and then 2 of the less popular ones. So next episode, you're getting excited because it's my redesigns of Ultimate Swampfire and Deco Echo. But maybe you're more excited for me to not redesign, add alternate Ultimates for some of the less popular aliens. See how I cover it. Now, with Ultimate Cannonbolt being such a letdown, I wanted to make my design way different, but there was a bit of a challenge. Cannonbolt's main ability is just rolling up and rolling around, and you can't really add anything onto that. And I didn't want it to just be some random ability that don't fit with his regular ones. Like, Humongosaur, he gets Gatling guns for hands. That's a bit of an odd ability, but it fits with his, like, abilities that he already has with, like, super strength. And then he gains, like, that Ankylosaurus tail, which also fits because he's like a dinosaur. So, like, they're all random, but they still somewhat make sense, and I wanted to do that for this one. You might see I've changed the colours a bit, made them, like, orange and blue. Pretty cool colour scheme, if you ask me. What I've done is I've transformed his hands into wheels. So he can't curl up anymore, but now he uses his hands as wheels, and he's probably a much more of, like, an up-close brawler. I think with him transforming into a ball, that's not a natural progression, but it's a progression nonetheless, and I think it really works. As well as if you can see behind his head there, it's like there's a cannon on his back. You can shoot miniature versions of the balls he rolls up in from there. I just think that's a cool idea, giving him a bit more of a diverse moveset than the original. You might have noticed I'm using the ink tanks method for creating ultimates, where they've got to have a trade-off and be a different colour palette. I think for some of these, I just think that's like, it just makes sense. Like, the two main things you distinguish an alien are their abilities and their appearance, so I just think it makes sense and it makes less sense not to do. I think that's why people dislike Ultimate Big Chin and Ultimate Cannonbolt so much. Like, their abilities, they're not good, but with a better design, that could have been like, I could have let them off on that. Anyway, we're getting to the end of this drawing, and I just wanted to take time to talk about, I'm using that to frame this character, and I think it works well, but I think I have to take this and use this lesson to figure out more creative ways to frame my characters in the future. Now, Cannonbolt, he's one of my favourite Ben 10 aliens, so I definitely think he deserved this redesign. Well, not redesign. If you want to see part 3, make sure to subscribe. Anyway, I'll see you in the next one.